All right, good afternoon, CVGR. I appreciate everybody in attendance today. Hope everybody's being safe out there with the rainy streets. If not, you're cozy at home. Today we have a special session hosted by Dennis and David with CoStar. They're going to be going over how to increase your commercial business utilizing the CoStar platform to increase your prospects and lead generation. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to David and Dennis so they can teach you how to increase your commercial business. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you guys very much for having us. Thank you everybody for attending. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to go into the properties tab of CoStar. And this is like some kind of quick CoStar 101 right here as this page loads. So all these pins on the map here represent properties in our database. Now the blue pins, they turn orange when you hover over them. Those are active listings, either for sale or for lease. The gray pins are properties in the database that are not currently being marketed. It might be a sale comp, it might be a lease comp, it might be a building that somebody bought in 1970 and they've just sat on for the last 50 years. If we have information about it, we're going to include it in the database. Now, the purpose of this meeting today is prospecting for listings. So by definition, all those blue pins, we don't want to look at those. You know, they're already listed with somebody else. They already have a listing agreement in place, a business relationship. Like, that's not for us. We want all the other ones. So I'm going to do apartment units today, but basically the same steps that I'm running through here of just mechanically pulling this list in CoStar can be applied to any property type. So let's choose our area first. For my purposes today, let's do San Gabriel Valley. And how I'm doing that is for the CoStar users. On the left side here, I'm clicking on this location button. This allows me to filter by a variety of different geographic filters, basically. So you can look for specific counties, specific states, zip codes, cities, universities, or the CoStar's market and submarkets. Now the markets are going to be like Los Angeles, Orange County, Inland Empire. That's going to be kind of like a big chunk of territory. I would suggest getting a little more specific than that. You know, we could pull a list of every apartment building in LA County. That's going to be a list that's like, what, 20, 30,000, results long. It's a little unwieldy. Let's be a little more specific than that. So let's start with just San Gabriel Valley. So the blue shaded outline is kind of the territory that we're dealing with right there. I'm going to choose my property type as multifamily. So there's 4,625 apartment buildings here in San Gabriel Valley. That's everything that just exists in the world right now. Now, if we're prospecting for listings, we have a decision to make now at this step. We could pull a list of every apartment building, and if that's what you want to do, then all right. I kind of like that approach of I want to talk to every single one of these buildings. Every single one of them is a potential prospect for us. However, we can be a little more nuanced in that approach, which, for instance, let's look for properties that have not transacted recently. You know, if somebody just bought the building 2 weeks ago or a month ago, they're probably not ready to sell yet. So what I want to do is I'm going to click filters here. And I want to go to this more drop-down box and choose sale comps. And I'm going to click on the drop-down box where it says last sale date right here. And let's say something that has not sold in the last 10 years, for instance. So let's just use March 1st, 2013. Okay, so now we have, 1,845 properties. I'm going to go to my list view now. So right now we're on the map view, this button right here. I'm going to click on the one right next to it that says list. Now we still need to filter out the properties that are currently listed. They're already listed with another agent. So if we're prospecting for listings, that's no good for us. We don't want those. So how I do that is where we chose our property type, this drop-down box that says multifamily right here. Immediately next to that, to the left, is listing type. So click on that and choose for sale. There's 4 of them. So not too many, but those are still 4 properties I do not want on this list. So I'm just going to delete these. Now we can click on each one of these minus signs here to remove them individually. If I choose the check mark selecting the property, that gives me this new menu here. Now I can choose all of them at once and then hit remove selected. So there's only 4 here, so that's pretty easy to just, delete them all individually. What if there was like 100 of these? We don't need to click through 100 times. Just click one. Now we have this menu here. Click that. Will let us choose all of them at once. Remove selected. And now where we chose for sale right here, I want to change that back to just blank. So what we just did was, out of this list of apartment buildings in San Gabriel Valley that have not sold in the last 10 years, we have removed the ones that are currently on the market for sale. So that leaves us with this nice clean list of 1,841 properties. Again, a decision to make right here. Is that the list that we want to go with? Is that we want a big long list like that, or do we want to be a little more specific? If we want to be more specific, we could filter by number of units. Like let's get the really large properties out of the list. We're probably a little more comfortable working with kind of like more mom and pop owners, the smaller transactions. We might have a better network of buyers, of people we already know. So let's filter out anything over 50 units. Let that load. Did that even do anything? There we go. All right, so 1,728. Now let's just start going through a few of these.
What was the original amount?
The original was 4,500 something, so we cut that basically into a third, like a third of it, something like that. So now there's 3 basic ways that we can approach this list. The first, the simplest, maybe not the most effective, but definitely the simplest, is to just go line by line. We're going to pick up the phone and call the property owner of every single one of these properties. So to do that, we're going to open up the property record here. This is a 4-unit building in Roland Heights, built in 1977. Looks like we've got 3 2-bed units and 1 3-bed unit. Click on contacts here. Now recorded owner and true owner. So recorded owner, that's the name on title, which a lot of times for commercial property is going to be an LLC, a family trust, an Inc. There's all kinds of different shell entities that people use as their name on title. Number one, for tax purposes, this is income coming in. If it's under a business, that's taxed differently than if it's just somebody's individual name. But also for seasoned investors, they don't necessarily want the whole world to know that they're the owner of that property. So they will use these shell entities like as the name on title. So that's the recorded owner. The true owner is who our research department has determined is the actual individual behind that shell entity, and we're going to get some contact information for them. So in this case, Wong Trust, that's pretty generic. What do we do with that really? We've determined that Mary Wong is the person behind Wong Family Trust. And as of October 3rd, 2019, that's her phone number. And that's her email address. So this is kind of like route number 1 with this list, is I'm going to just go property by property, come to this contacts tab, pick up the phone, call the owner. Now that's a very brute force way to do that. It's not very efficient for a number of reasons. First of all, that's 1,700 phone calls that we're going to make. Number 2, there's probably some repeat owners in this list. If I pick up the phone and call Mary here to talk to her about, 18425 Decidia Street here, what if she owns other property? I'd probably want to talk to her about those other buildings. And it's not a good look if I call her this one time about this property, and then an hour later, I'm working through my list and, oh, her name pops up again. I call her again. Oh, hi, Mary. We spoke earlier this morning. Actually, I didn't do any research about you before I picked up the phone. I don't really know anything about you other than that you own this building. You should, give me a listing and pay me a 5-figure commission on your transaction. So what I think is a little better, instead of just going property by property here, is to come to this owners tab. So we're on the properties tab right now. That's just the list of all the individual addresses. Let's go over to owners and give this a second to load. So now we're gonna be looking at the portfolio view of all the people who own properties in this list. Now, some of these people are gonna own properties on this list. A lot of them are gonna have property outside of this list. This is gonna give you a lot of insight into who that owner is, what they're up to, what is the size of their operation, are they actively buying and selling, do they have vacancy in their existing properties, all these things that you'd want to know about somebody before you pick up the phone to call them about their real estate needs. So a couple columns that are good here. The default sorting here is the total units in search. So like this top one here, Golden Management. This is one of the largest multifamily landlords in San Gabriel Valley. They've got 735 units in the search that we just ran. So that is, they have 735 units in apartment buildings in San Gabriel Valley that have not sold in the last 10 years. That's across 45 properties here, that number of properties in search. We can also look at the total number of properties owned, this column right here. So they have 597 properties total in their portfolio. Let's sort by that properties owned column right there. So I'm going to click on properties owned and give this a second to load. Now, with everything else I'm about to say here, do not let me stomp on your dreams. Absolutely call Golden Management or Blackstone or Bank of America or Positive Investments, these massive institutional level investors to talk about their properties. Do not let me tell you that you can't do it. However, maybe it's a little more advantageous to be a little lower down this list here. Like any of these people with like less than 20 properties, basically, or 20 and under, if you own 20 apartment buildings, that's still a pretty serious investor. That's a significant property portfolio. I would be very happy to own 20 apartment buildings. But they're not so huge that they're just going to go like, walk up to CBRE and hand them the listing. Or, they may not have, well-established business relationships. The people in this range, they're definitely investors. They definitely have money. They definitely have property portfolios, but they're not, this huge entity kind of thing. So like, let's take John Wrong here. He lives in Alhambra. When you click on someone's name in that owner list here, now we can see everything we'd want to know about this guy. So that's his mailing address. That's his phone number. We can look at all of his properties right here. How does he relate to those properties? The association type right here. Does he actually own it? Did he used to own it? Is he a property manager? Did he handle the leasing? Kind of depending on what you're looking at, there's different categories of like ownership relationship basically that are tracked inside of CoStar. So let's filter just for like the true owner properties. That's a nice little portfolio. I would love to talk to this guy about his current apartment buildings and whether or not he's interested in buying or selling. Click on the contacts tab. Yes.
Star. Okay, and then so basically Jeffrey asked, what does the star mean?
So the star rating, that's our building rating system. It's similar to like Class A, Class B, Class C, only we use the stars instead. For a building to be 5-star, for instance, it has to be like new construction, architecturally significant, LEED certified. Like there's all these different boxes that have to be checked. The vast majority of commercial property in Southern California, if it's older than 5 years, 10 years, something like that, it's going to be 2 and 3 star. Just like Class B and Class C makes up the vast majority of commercial property in Southern California. Like if it's a stucco building, it's probably Class B, Class C, probably 2 and 3 star. Okay. Absolutely. So we're looking at the contact tab now here. So this is just one individual. So he's the only guy we'd want to talk to. So that makes that pretty simple. That's his phone number. That's his email address right there. If we were looking at a company here, for instance, like let's take Positive Investments. Everybody that we know about associated with this company is tracked here. Who they are, what their title is, what their phone number is, where their office is, which in this case is in Arcadia here. Now, we do not allow bulk exporting of email addresses. We do not want our clients or you guys, anybody connected inside of CoStar getting added to like mass distribution lists We had a lot of problems with people just, getting incessantly spammed with emails specifically. So you can do the emails here, but you cannot bulk export them in a spreadsheet like you could the phone numbers, for instance. It's just something to be aware of. Frankly, I would not advise email as an outreach. If you've met with them already, you've already established some rapport, they're serious about talking to you about their property, then I think email's okay. How many people, for just to the room here, how many emails do you think you receive on average in your email inbox every day? How many of them do you read? What, like 1 or 2 a day? Most of them either just sit there, deleted, spam. Same kind of thing here. I would not rely on email for listing prospecting. You're not going to get very far, in my opinion. Phone numbers, meeting people in person.
What is the contact name mean?
The contact name, that's that person. This is like, that's an individual that works for Positive Investments.
So what do? Do you call them or do you write them a letter first?
Well, both. I'm a phone call guy. I like making phone calls. Most commercial brokers make a lot of phone calls. If you're not interested in making a lot of phone calls, I think you're going to have a hard time in commercial real estate. I'll be very frank about that. However, letters do work, and especially handwritten letters. How many people in the last month have received a piece of mail that was a handwritten letter?
Or at least the envelope.
The envelope, at least. It's very rare. It really sticks out. You go and you pick up your mail and you've got like the flyer from your grocery store, and a solar company has sent you a flyer or something, and it's just a bunch of junk basically. But then there's this envelope at the end that had somebody's handwritten on it. That really sticks out. You might open it up and you might just throw it away, but you're probably going to open it up and read it. That's a pretty effective initial outreach, is letters like that. Now, let's say we wanted to do a mailer campaign to this list of property owners. I would click on reports here inside of CoStar, let this load. And I'm going to scroll down to list reports. And I want this company contact labels report right here. So these are 5160 formatted mailing labels for all of the true owners of this list of properties. So back to that distinction again between true owner and recorded owner. Let's say we only have the recorded owner. Their name is not going to end up on this report. We do not want you sending out paid postage to an address that we have not confirmed. A lot of times for those recorded owners, the address for the LLC on title is the apartment building. Sending a letter there gets you nothing. A tenant's going to look at it and probably throw it away. You want to get it to the owner, the true owner. So only true owners are listed on this company contact labels. Only good confirmed contact addresses for these true owners of properties. So we can hit next. For contact types, I'm going to choose the current owners right here. And then we'll hit generate, which I think I need to do another screen share for the people online.
Oh, they haven't seen it. Oh, oops.
No, just the
Okay,
report
okay,
wizard
okay.
always opens a new window. There you go. Now, what you would do with this is go to Staples or whatever, buy some 5160 mailing labels. You can load that directly into a printer, take this report, print that directly to the mailing labels, apply that to the envelope that you've handwritten with a letter inside of it. Another very common tactic is if you have just sold a property, for instance, put together a flyer saying just sold, 5 million over asking, whatever the case may be, with some pictures of the property address, run a search in here. Actually, we'll walk through this idea, but send that to people, the people who own property around the area of the transaction you just did. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't want to sell their property. They probably care what the value of their property is, though. And so something that just sold, like right down the street from them, they're going to look at that. They're going to pay attention to that a little bit. Oop. Get back over here. Now, then the last thing I would do with this list. So let's say this is our farm, basically. Like we're going to prospect in these 1,700 properties here, and however many list of owners this is, like this is what we're gonna work on. We're gonna pick up the phone, we're gonna call these people, we're gonna send them letters, we're gonna, get in touch with them. Let's save this search. Let's call this SGV multifamily not sold last 10 years. Now I'm gonna enable an alert on this search. Enabling an alert will send me an email and a notification inside of CoStar. There's a change to any one of these properties. Specifically, has it been listed with somebody else? If this is our prospect list, this is our farm. If they go and list their property with somebody else, we want to know that. We don't need to call them anymore. We can take that off of our list. So I'm going to hit save. Now the email, one email comes in the morning with the updates to all of your saved searches. There will be a page break in between each one of these. I personally do not like interfacing with that alert email. It's just one picture, one property. And as you can see, when I open the saved searches here, we've got a ton of saved searches. Let's load. I don't necessarily want to know about every single one of these every single day. I think it is much more efficient, much easier to just log into CoStar and come here to my saved searches. You'll see this new icon right here. That means there's an update to one of your saved searches. And if, like, let's say, for instance, this is your CoStar, right? So this is Dennis's CoStar. So he's got, different searches set up basically than I do. But I can come in here, like in the morning, for instance, look at all of my saved searches. If one of these has a new, update to it, like a property that was on my farm list that is now listed for sale, I can click on that saved search. It'll open up the properties tab with all those filters applied, and the update is very clearly labeled, has that blue icon on it with the date of when the change took place. If you view it in the list view here, it's also it's very clear basically like which one there's been a change for. You don't have to, it's not going to make you run through the list every single time. So that is how I advise to keep up with saved searches, is just log in and go to the saved searches tab. With the email, it's just going to show you the first property and then your next saved search and then your next saved search and so on and so forth. It's going to direct you back to those saved searches. Like if you click on the property, it's just going to open up CoStar in your saved searches tab. So just log into CoStar and check your saved searches. Questions?
Any questions?
David,
Yes.
the list that you're talking about, you have to go into the CoStar app in order to get the list.
Correct.
And so Peter asked,
You're not a subscriber of CoStar, you're out of luck.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything I'm showing right here. This is about using CoStar to prospect for listings. So let's say you didn't have CoStar and you wanted to do this. And I can say this because when I was a commercial broker, I worked at KW Commercial where we had CoStar, and then I went to a boutique shop where we did not have CoStar. So when I had CoStar, I did exactly what I just showed you guys. Isolated into a specific type of property with my search parameters, get rid of the ones that are for sale. This is my call list now. Send them a letter, reach out to them, whatever, set the alerts, stay on top of new listings. Let's say you didn't have CoStar. What you're going to want to do, and this is very time consuming, but this is what you can do. You go to your title company, ask them for a list of properties that meet your criteria, basically like what we input for our filter search here in CoStar. They're going to give you this big spreadsheet. Now that spreadsheet is going to be populated with all those property addresses and all of those recorded owners, which again, we've as we've discussed, that's not actually the information we want. We still need to figure out, who that person is and how we're going to get in touch with them. In the state of California, any business entity has to register with the state, Secretary of State's department here. So you can come here and search for LLCs, family trusts, INCs, limited partnerships, any of those shell entities that you might find on title, plug them in here, go through the registration documents for those LLCs. You will get names and addresses. Sometimes those names and addresses are useful, sometimes they're not. Then you're going to take those names and addresses and you're going to plug those into Google. You're going to try to figure out, is the address that I got an attorney's office? Is it a PO box? Is it somebody's home address? Like what am I working with basically? Then once you've got some of that, then you're going to do another Google search to try to find a phone number. All of that is going to be for every single one of those property records.
So basically, that is the data.
Yeah. This is really what accessing CoStar is about, is taking that legwork off of your plate. Because it is very time consuming. When
You
I,
don't get the telephone number, you only get the address of the agent of service.
correct, correct,
And then the agent service the process, not the owner.
correct.
That's it, you know,
What-
so it's,
What will happen repeatedly, as Peter has mentioned, is a lot of times the address that you get from those documents is not anybody related to that LLC
right.
or that limited partnership. It's the person that they paid to establish the LLC for them. Like somebody has to like sign, there's like a registered agent for the state. It has to be like the responsible party there. That does not have anything to do with the ownership of those properties in most cases. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times, again, I speak from a lot of experience. I spent a lot of time doing this, like building out a database like this. You will find over and over and over and over and over again, some address on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. That is not the property owner. That is the attorney that set up the LLC for those property buildings. And so you do that, again, like back to like the benefits of that portfolio view of like multiple properties owned in your list. Same thing's going to happen on the list from the title report. You do this search a couple times, you get that same address 5 or 6 times, you're all excited thinking, oh man, I figured out we got a little portfolio here. I'm going to call this one guy for all the properties. That's not the owner. That's the attorney that set up the LLC. And you're still, in the dark about a phone number. You're basically relying on a Google search. I mean, unless you can get access to like, LexisNexis or something like that, which as far as I know, they've tightened up on giving real estate agents access to that. LexisNexis, for those who are not aware, this is a big database of phone numbers. Basically, it's like a light background check you can run on people. Some real estate people have had success utilizing that. It is very difficult to get a hold of a license for LexisNexis, and it is also exorbitantly expensive. I'm not even sure what the exact quote would be, but several $1,000s a month for access to that tool. And even with that tool, again, when I was building my database, we were lucky enough to have a LexisNexis subscription. You're going to get a list of maybe 20 or 30 phone numbers. You have no idea which one is the right one. All you can do is pick up the phone and call and hope that the person answers, or that their voicemail, says, hi, I'm such and such, or that the number is still active. It's not their sister. It's not their grandmother. Like all of this research, you're either doing that yourself or you're paying for it. CoStar is going to be the most economical use of dollars and time of just getting you to who is the property owner, how do I get in touch with them? Otherwise, you're going to become very familiar with this website right here.
And I think it's more cost effective if you get befriended with CoStar subscriber in the office. There are about 14 of them in the CBGR. So you just make friends with them and say, hey, why don't I?
You don't want to hear that. That's what we did. It sounds like.
Together, work together,
I think overall the benefit is if you're gonna actually use it to its fullest, because if you're not, then what's the point?
And that's another thing. I do not want to sugarcoat the work that goes into this. Like I said at the beginning, if you are not the kind of person that wants to pick up the phone like that, I don't know if this is for you. Just to be frank, some people are blessed in life. They have strong family connections, or they just meet the right person at the right time and they get a deal done. And the stars can't align for sure. But the serious, established, successful commercial brokers, they are doing stuff like this every single day, very consistently. 50 phone calls is a light call day. That's, yeah. When I was doing that, building my own database, I did not count the number of outbound calls I made. My count was confirmed database hits, meaning I actually spoke to somebody. They answered the phone and said, yes, I am such and such, and yes, I own such and such property address.
That's why the first thing is not matched, the person just talked to you, you gotta drop that off.
Exactly, exactly. So it is, you know, this is not, you know, snap your fingers and a deal falls in your lap. That is not how this works.
So you even have numbers, you might have like 200 numbers, you're lucky if you get like 5. You talk to 5 numbers, and you actually talk to the true owner.
Well, this is one of those benefit. This is another benefit of CoStar Access is all those phone numbers that we have. They're always time stamped. You know, on like that one that we looked at, I think it said like November 4th, 2019 or whatever the date was. On that day, someone from our research department spoke to Mary Wong about that property, confirmed, yes, this is your phone number. Yes, you own this property.
My feeling is that with the CoStar phone number, probably my thing, the accuracy, probably like not 100%, I would say about 90%, 95%.
I mean, people change phone numbers. There's nothing, there's nothing we can do about that, but you know,
What's the percentage
if it's there and it's time stamped, it was correct at that time.
at that time?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if it's time stamped from like 2003,
Or 3 years
you
ago?
know, probably give it a grain of salt. You know,
Okay.
David, what is the demeanor of these owners based on the residential, you know, the commercial owners? Are they pretty receptacle or is it like they get on your face, you know?
total,
to-
total mixed bag.
Oh, total mixed bag.
You're apt, like, I mean, if you're going to be cold calling, you're
Uh-huh,
gonna
uh-huh.
get people that are hanging up on you or
Uh-huh.
rude. That it just goes with the territory.
I see. Okay. All
This
right.
is another benefit of doing a lot of that is you get used to it very quickly and you start to develop much thicker skin.
Uh-huh.
I very vividly and I cherish this memory from my cold calling days. I was canvassing Long Beach for apartment buildings, just like this. And I
Mhm.
called this guy, and it was like, you know, 6:30 at night. He was probably sitting down for dinner, but like whatever. And so he picked up a phone. I said, "Hi, are you such and such?" He says, "Yes." Da, da, da. And I say, "Hi, well, my name is David Blue. I'm calling from Growth Investment Group. I'd love to talk to you about your da 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 da." And he says, "Well, David, I'm so glad that you called because I want to let you know right now that you can go screw yourself. You will never have a
wow.
fiduciary relationship of any kind. You will never represent me in a transaction. You will never do any kind of business with me whatsoever." And it makes me very happy to say that.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Click. And I still remember this guy when
Oh my-
he hung up the phone and I burst out laughing. I was like,
But when I was saying, it's sooner or later, let's talk about this.
David, another question is, what is the subscription for this CoStar?
so that is actually a question for
360 per night.
360.
$360 per month.
How much?
I see. Okay.
Dollars.
I see. Okay.
That is for nationwide access, which even if you're only doing transactions in Southern California, let's run a little search here.
So there's no local access.
No,
No.
but I want to show you why that the nationwide access is important here in Southern California. Let's look at the San Gabriel Valley apartment buildings again.
A lot of these people own property in our state.
Correct.
Correct.
So-
Or
So an audience member was smart. He figured it out.
Once you hit them, you get all the stuff. You can work it out with them.
let's go to this owners tab again. Especially since COVID, all kinds of people are reevaluating their relationship with space. They moved to Arizona, they moved to Texas, they moved to Wyoming, they moved out of Los Angeles, they moved to Victorville, wherever. They're not taking their commercial real estate with them. Need to move this. Here we go. So you can see here, you know, there's a lot of California, but plenty of these people are right outside of California. Under our old model, where you could purchase, for instance, just access in LA County, let's say, any of these people here that do not have an address inside Los Angeles County, you don't have them. They're not on here. You don't have their phone number. You can't see anything about those properties or who the owners are.
Does CoStar cross-reference in this, for instance, this case, where you have an owner that's in multiple states? And you know, do you guys cross-reference the data to ensure that that's the right owner for all of them?
As best we can, yeah.
Or is
Yeah.
that a good way to cross-reference, like, okay, this data is accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it's vetted aggressively. You know, people are, especially like the multi-state national investors, those are the people most likely to set up like a separate LLC for every single property purchase they make. You know, it takes some time sometimes to work through all of that. But if the LLC has been dug into, and we're able to tie that back to say positive investments, then yes, that property is now going to loop under positive investments as opposed to the standalone LLC.
Can you tell us more on the demographics?
Sure.
So the question was, can we look at the demographic information?
Do we have call scripts? No, we do not. That is where CB George would come in, frankly. You know, we are data providers. We are not brokers. That we can talk about that, but I want to emphasize this point though. I want to emphasize this point about how CoStar and how we conduct ourselves as a company. So we are not Zillow. We do not buy property. We do not sell property. We do not transact property. You will notice when you're looking at active listings in CoStar, nowhere is commission listed. It's entirely up to the broker if they want to provide that information. We are data providers. What we want to do is provide you with the tools and information that you need to conduct your real estate business in the way that you want it. This is a level playing field in the commercial real estate world. If you want to go after apartment buildings in Arcadia, less than 4 units, we got you covered. If you want to look for hotel opportunities in Nevada, we got you covered. Whatever your little slice of real estate is, CoStar is going to have the information you need, but we are not brokers. We do not have call scripts. We do not transact real estate. I want to be very clear about that.
You have data on the property that's 4 units or less?
Some, yes. So the way that works is our research department does not actively track 2 to 4 units the way we do 5 units and up. Now, especially here in San Gabriel Valley, especially, there is a lot of multifamily property in that range. If somebody wants to list a duplex, for instance, in CoStar, we will let them do that, and then we will collect the sale comp information. We're just not actively pursuing those 2, 3, 4 units the way we do 5 units and up. You wanted to see demographic information. I clicked here and we have too many search results basically. So I want to pare this down. Let's say, you know what the one that's our demographics time?
I think it's like 1,000 or 2,000.
Okay. Let's do the recently sold ones. Let's say through 120. Let's load.
We covered all the chat questions.
Yep. Yeah, it was about the call scripts. Let's say under 25.
Dennis?
Huh?
CoStar can filter out, right? For example, in San Gabriel Valley, you only like 2 to 4. I mean,
Yes,
you have it, right?
yeah, there's a way to do that, yeah. correct.
That's actually what I'm doing right here is so I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to get our list down to a shorter list to go to the demographics tab. So I just did between 10 and 25, for instance. But you can choose the drop downs here, or you can type in like 2 and 4.
Oh, here, Frank Glass, would that be it?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Okay.
so maybe you need to.
About
change
300 of those in San Gabriel Valley in the database. There you go. Here you go.
Really, right?
334.
You can also fill it out through that, and then also you can add like, haven't sold for like 10 years?
Yep. Which I think we already have that filter on actually.
Yeah, we have that filter on
So
already.
it's 300.
So yeah, these are 300 that haven't sold in the last 10 years.
Yeah, or 5 years, 5 years, not 10 years. Yeah.
You get a filter and you got the number of units, and then you click on the demo, right?
Yep.
And you have phone numbers, right?
Yep.
Okay.
But again, I think it's better to just go to the owners tab and do it that way.
So Michelle Olson, who works here in the Alhambra office, basically she had a question about demographic information. Generally, it's going to be for retailers, but however, these are the demographic information that you can pull from CoStar.
Which like, so you can view it on this tab here, but if you go into an individual property record,
And you could also look up if it's a retail building, look up traffic counts around the area too.
So what's basically the difference between the demo info versus the owner's info?
Oh, demographic information is like median household income.
Say again? Excuse me?
Demographic information would be like, what is the genetic, or not what is the racial makeup of this area? What is the median household income in a 1 and 3 mile radius around a property? What is the median age in an area there? Which, like, if so, we did like the demographics tab where it showed you that table with all those numbers for 2021. If you go to an individual property record and click on the demographics tab here, you can get very granular here. Like, we could spend an hour on just this page. This is mostly used for retail property for site selection purposes. You know, anybody that's doing any kind of like point of sale retail, like they want to open like a Subway or something like that, or like a Trader Joe's, you know, they want to have some idea of what is the average spending income in the area.
Jeff, last session with, the demographic, you know, the commercial, classes, demographic, oh, it's beautiful, you know, you can do it any way you want, there's so many ways to, you know.
If you have a
speak with that.
client, have a place to rent, you can tell exactly that area, what kind of business is needed. And then you can, you know, 200 people, actually, for that particular rental.
So like these like consumer spending details here. So like, you know, every business is going to have some idea of what their ideal, you know, place looks like based on these criteria. So like, you know, apparel spending, they're spending about $1,300 a year. That may or may not be attractive for a business operator. They may look at that and say, that's not enough. We're going to go down the street. And then these, the traffic counts here, these are another metric that's used frequently for that kind of site selection. They want to know like how many people are coming through here on average every single day.
And
Now
it's free, if you don't have to pay $360.
Now, the really cutting edge of this kind of stuff, like this demographic information, especially the traffic counts, which is something that's not in CoStar right now, is using cell phone information to track specific foot traffic going to and from areas. This is like the cutting edge of retail site selection. I saw a presentation on from one of these companies a couple months ago, and very interestingly, they were able to connect a straight line or like a direct connection between gas prices increasing in March of last year and drop off in retail sales activity, because like through this cell phone data, like literally there was a 10% drop in pedestrian foot traffic around, like it was a Kroger, I think they were using as the case study. And their connection they were making was gas prices went up, more people were staying at home again.
How do they determine foot traffic? Is it based off of car traffic as well?
Cell phone records.
Just cell phone?
Yeah. All kinds of weird privacy concerns there. That is kind of why we have not, you know, dove into that. But there are data sources out there that are providing that kind of information.
That's a lot of sources to be given with the demo, right? The demo.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, sort of depending on who you're dealing with, like this might be the most important page you would pull up in a CoStar property record. It just kind of depends. Like, you know, if you're looking at apartment buildings, I doubt they really care about like daytime spend in the area. The traffic counts may or may not be important. You know, it just sort of depends what your client is working for, what their goals are, what their criteria are.
There's some kind of properties, what you call it, specified or special type of property like a church. How do you search them?
Back here.
Special kind of building.
I think you have churches in that, huh?
Yeah, I have like basically, I work with a broker in Keller Williams. He's specifically doing churches. So yeah, we have data for churches too.
Specialty there. So really this is especially important in the specialty because that is sort of like a catch-all for a lot of them, that a lot of properties that don't fall into some of these other ones.
Right.
But these property types here, these are kind of like the big categories. If we click on filters.
And that should be like secondary use
Yeah.
religious services.
If you go to buildings, there's going to be secondary type here, and there's going to be a lot of different options. Again, depending on like what type of property we filtered for.
What would it be under
Religious
worship?
facility.
Religious facility right there.
Let's say church.
It's like, this is gonna be, you know, temples, churches, mosques, you know, anything that would fall under a religious facility.
Codes.
Yeah, I,
Can you?
I am familiar with it. Sorry, say again?
Specify also the city you're looking for. the
Sure.
City,
What city?
Glendale.
Good luck with that. Glendale.
But like, let's say we had chosen industrial instead of specialty. Under that secondary type, there would be like warehouse, food distribution, cold storage, like these different, like, you know, subcategories. There, so you got 21 religious facilities in Glendale. One of them is for sale. How often are the demographic info updated?
That I
Good
don't know.
question. I
Oh,
think
you know what? I did ask someone that. I think it was like, is it once a quarter?
it's probably quarterly.
Yeah, I believe it's quarterly.
What's that
Let's-
mark one?
This is a, what, 7 million?
Almost 7.
800 a foot.
So yes, to answer your question, we do have information on churches too. Another way that you can look for churches too is like in the keyword search, type in church.
How do you know, how do you get the name of the owner?
In this case, you would click on contacts. Now, in this case, it looks like it's missing. So for this one was not in the database, basically. When it was listed for sale, it was entered here. Adam has some work to do as far as like updating this information. But we can also click on public record here. Your public record tab, this is basically like the feed from the title company. So First Church of Christ Center, and that's their address, which is probably the address of the property. So like, if we don't have that true owner information, you can also click on public record and go through those steps I was talking about with like the Secretary of State.
Didn't show.
We go to church and church will give you the church number, call the church and ask for the owner.
There
Yeah.
it is.
There you go. Good
That's it.
idea.
And you gotta talk nicely over the phone. You said you're gonna be donate $2,000 to the owner.
Maybe-
Stuff in the phone number.
May- Maybe it's like the nice Oregon lady answers the phone and you can sweet talk her for owner information, you know? That's where you as brokers are really, you know, really like earning the bacon is like, you know, can you get through those gatekeepers?
Yeah.
Which that's like a whole other, you know, thing to talk about.
You gotta be a detective.
So that's what I've got. I think Dennis had what, at least one other
I think-
module.
Yeah, I think we're good on time. That was already 2:48. Or I could go through it really quickly. So I'll just do it in like 2 minutes or
Yeah.
2 to 5 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is just basically, a lot of people are kind of freaking out about loans right now, right, and interest rates. So within the public records tab, which we're in right now, so let me just jump out and then get back into it. Basically, I'm gonna show you how you can prospect and look for properties that have loans that are maturing. So you can go after those types of owners, right? So what you can do is you go to public records. And you can see I'm doing a cool dance here on the video. I'm gonna, let's say, for example, pick a city. We'll go ahead and pick Pasadena, California. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the filters tab right over here. And I'm gonna click on more. Sorry, I'm gonna click on loans. And then so I can click on basically loans that are gonna be maturing in the next 2 years. So I'll go ahead and wait for the data to load.
There, 6,200 2-year maturities.
Yeah, oh, there we go. So it's hard for me to read, but I believe that says 81 parcels of land. So basically what you would do is you would click on that particular building. We can click on loan and we can find out more about the specific loan, right? So when we click on the right-hand side, we'll see that this loan with the maturity date and stuff like that, right? So I'll have the information here.
And then click on the CoStar property details.
So I'm gonna go click on CoStar property details. Which one did you want me to click on?
Next to map right there.
Next
Yeah,
to.
that. So we're in-
Oh, here we go.
So we're in the public record tab, and so when you're on the public record tab, you're looking at parcels, not necessarily properties, there's land. So there's gonna be some of those that there's not properties on, or that CoStar may not have information on, especially if it is vacant land. So if you go to that CoStar property detail, now you can see all that information that you would see in the properties tab, but we filtered for this loan information first. So the public record tab, you kind of have to like finagle it a little bit, but the information is there.
So what's the advantage of finding out that, those property, look like 2 years towards maturity? What's gonna give you, what sort of, advantage that we have to talk to the owners?
Well, I mean, if you have an upcoming maturity date, that is a reason that somebody might be interested in offloading their property. You know, they don't want to pay the balloon payment on the end of the loan if they sell it.
We talk maturity, meaning what, when they're doing, when they have a loan, when they're paying them off the loan, what interest, right?
Yeah,
So it's the last 2 years, after they mature, that means what, all the loans be paid out?
with this filter, maturity means there's a balloon payment on the end of that loan.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a large number that they have to. pay out.
correct. And so some people, like, not, this is not like 100%, like all these people are going to sell their property because there's a maturity date. But that is a reason that somebody might want to sell their property, is that they have a large
What choice
maturity
do they have when the maturity comes? They have to refinance
or pay it.
and pay it off.
Yeah,
That's the only choice they have.
or sell it,
Sell it,
exchange
refinance
it.
or pay it off.
Yeah. And especially especially the sell it, the person that's selling the property to avoid a balloon payment, they are probably gonna wanna do a 1031 exchange into another property to avoid that capital gains hit. So you, the broker, that's maybe 2 transactions on the line for you.
So by the year of maturity, they have to take some sort of action,
Correct.
okay? Yeah, okay.
And then in the chat, Diana asked, can you provide your info and contact? So I believe at the end of the call, Ruben can provide everyone on the Zoom call our information, right?
Yes,
Okay, very cool.
I will send that out, and this will be recorded and sent out as well.
Perfect. So there's one last thing I could show you since we have a little bit of time. What I'm gonna show you, so we don't have anything within CoStar that has expired listings, but I could show you the next thing that's comparable to that. Basically, I could show you something that was listed on the market and then taken off the market, okay? So what you would do within CoStar is you would go into the properties tab. And then we can do like Los Angeles County.
At the end there.
Angeles, there we go. Click CoStar Market. And then what we can do is we can go into the list view. We click on changes. And then we can change, so it's gonna be a little bit too big, so I'm gonna change it to Pasadena. And then I'm gonna just do, let's say, for example, multifamily. And I'm trying to get the search down a little bit lower, which is good now. And then we can do like the last 365 days. So what I'm looking for is properties that say withdrawn or withdrew. So these properties at one point were listings that were on CoStar, and then it did get withdrawn. So then what we can do is, for example, this particular property right here. And once it loads, we can see that this property, like the history behind it. So basically what you would do is you would look for these properties that got withdrawn, and then you'll go into public records data and just double check to make sure that it's not currently active. And then so that's how we would look for properties that were once on the market, taken off, and then just double check. And then so you can talk to these owners.
But you have to do it individually, right?
Yeah, you would have to do individual, yeah.
Just like, for example, you can just like, the chance you're gonna get is that maybe they're relisted. You can check it out like past 3 months. anybody withdraw, you got a whole list.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
And then you wanna go individually, make sure they don't go back to the market.
Exactly, yep.
Or like did the listing get taken down, but then it was sold off market? Like, if there's a new name on the title.
It's called on, find out anyway.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, you can do that too. You can call and do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
you like to take time,
He's
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're so great, congratulations, you have another property to sell, that's it.
So the good thing about doing it this way though, is not a lot of people with that has CoStar know how to do this.
Okay.
Right, so so it's a good way to prospect and look for, listings.
Which one other blanket statement here, so for CoStar subscribers, training, like we're doing this right now,
Right.
this is part of the service.
Right.
We're gonna be doing these like as a group here at CB George, but like if you're a CoStar subscriber and you wanna do one of these one-on-one,
Right.
that is part of the service,
Right.
please contact us, we'd
Okay.
love to meet with you,
Okay.
Only when you subscribe.
correct.
Just when you just pay $201 a month, because you get a service.
Hey, I mean,
I know,
X what, that's what, $360 a month is what,
What's that?
that's, 3,500, it's like, $4,500 for the year?
Number of
You do a single commercial transaction,
Yeah, I know.
commission's gonna be what,
Yeah.
20 grand on the low
Let's
end,
wait for them to talk topic.
Sorry.
And Jeffrey had a question.
How many days?
How many days what?
Less than 30 days? You, or less than 3 months?
So-
What's the changes?
I put 365 days.
365.
Yeah, 365 days, 1 year. So that's all we had to present.
A monthly, what?
So
$360.
$360 per month, and it has to be a 1-year contract.
1 year
So
contract.
minimum generally it's gonna be 1 year. Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, 360만.
Which
Looks up,
again,
looks up.
so that's what, like,
Yeah,
so that's what, $4,500 for the year, roughly, a little less than
Five
that?
grand, 5 grand.
Correct, correct. If you sell a commercial property, you represent a buyer on a commercial transaction at $1 million
I know.
purchase price, which is kind of on the low end, that's what, $20,000?
Yeah, one
commission?
commission.
This is something that makes money for you pretty quickly, like it's a pretty low barrier there. If this is the kind of thing where you need to close 5 deals or for something for this to make, financial sense for people, then like, okay. But one deal is going to be more, like several times over the annual cost.
and Coldwell Banker, George Realty does a great job of with the cost, right? So if we had to sell to a broker, it's gonna be a minimum of $500 per license. So you're getting a significant discount already.
For the CCIM.
Yeah, for a regular broker.
Like, let's say you were just like completely independent, like went out on your own, you were your own broker, all that. It's $500 a month for CoStar. Through CB George, you guys can get it for $360 a month. So there's a nice little discount there.
So what is the accuracy of the data? 90%?
What's the accuracy of the data? Was the question.
Very high. I mean, we have a 1,500 person research department. All they do is collect this property information. That is, it's the second largest research department in the United States. Only the US Census Bureau is a larger research organization like ours. I'm serious. There is not a larger research organization like ours. Yes,
How do you farm for a land, just land?
land?
So same thing, so the question was how do we farm for land? So same exact thing that we did for multifamily. The only other thing, instead of clicking on the multifamily button, you would click on the land button.
Now, I will say, if you are new to commercial real estate, I would not recommend you get into land. Land is, they're longer escrows, it's much slower moving. If you're shopping like a development site, for instance, a lot of times what will happen is that the property will sit in escrow for the entire entitlement process. That might be 3 years, that might be 4 years in some cases, it just sort of depends. You as the broker are kind of flapping in the wind that whole time, hoping nothing goes wrong with the buyer or the seller or the city planning department. Let's imagine that development site. So the seller let's say you have an acre of land and it's zoned for, 100 apartment units and some subterranean parking and whatever. If the buyer comes in and says, okay, I'll give you this amount for land that I can do that project on. A year later, the buyer might be going into the planning department to get, approvals for their project. The city could say, oh, well, you get 80. not 100. That blows up that buyer's model now. Now it doesn't make financial sense to build the building, cancel escrow, you the broker, I don't get anything.
Or new zoning laws.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, so all kinds of different,
Environmental.
Since they have the CoStar membership.
What was the question one more time?
What is, Dennis, what is the perception of the owners who are members? I mean, are they pretty, happy about the membership or?
Yes, so I work with like Positive Investments, Srinivas. I work with a lot of owners that have
Uh-huh.
CoStar. Basically, they understand the importance of a broker, the negotiation skills and things like that. However, a lot of owners want to verify the data. They also understand brokers might have other customers and clients, so they want to just make sure that they have the data firsthand too. So as far as like owners, they are super happy with CoStar. They like using it. They like our data. They find it's very accurate.
and across our customer base, it's what, a 94% renewal rate?
Yeah, and we have a 94% renewal rate, meaning that if there's 100 people, 94 of them are going to renew CoStar the next year because they like it enough. And the reason why it mainly comes with David and I being able to train you.
Do you guys have a trial period for a while?
There's no trial period. There's no 1-day trial. There's no 30-day trial. It's either you want it or you don't. However, what we can do is we can do as many demos as you need in order to feel comfortable. Another question in the audience was, can you share licenses with CoStar? The answer is no.
Think about it like your MLS access, like on the residential side. Can you share an MLS login? No. You want to export information out of the MLS? It's somebody else's name and everything going to that client. Same thing with CoStar.
I have a question.
Yes,
You do not recommend land for new commercial.
correct.
So what do you recommend?
Multifamily is usually the easiest. It's a lot of the same contracts. There's a lot of overlap in clients. Roughly 60% of the apartment units in Southern California are mom and pop owned, meaning they own like their primary residence in one apartment building. So like the likelihood of like, especially somebody coming out of residential, like you already have some clients and people you've worked with in the past, there's actually, there's a higher chance that some of those people might be interested in buying an apartment building, or they might already have one, they might want to sell it. So that's usually the easiest transition. Beyond that, industrial property is fairly straightforward. There's not a whole lot of nuance to it necessarily, but I will say it's extremely competitive right now. Vacancy for like industrial space to lease right now is at a roughly 1% across Greater Southern California. There's not a lot of new inventory being added. There's very high demand for those properties. There's not a lot of inventory.
But
So-
it's Mr. Affordable retail I think is kind of high, right?
Retail is always retail is always lively, I would say. So like the retail just by its nature is very, I heard it described once as Darwinian. Like imagine like a restaurant. Half of all restaurants that open up are out of business within a year. That may or may not have anything to do with the real estate. But you, the landlord, like the restaurant signs a lease here. One and two, that guy is not going to be in business a year from now. So there's always a fair bit of churn in retail, just sort of by its nature. That does present opportunities for brokers. Now, in terms of like complexity of transaction, retail is probably the highest level of complexity. Just because like all that demographic information that we were looking through, we kind of went like, hey, look at the median household income. Trader Joe's wants to open a new location. They're going to have probably a team of people analyzing that information to get very granular of like this property right here, as opposed to that street corner right there. So that the retail, in my opinion, does I would say reward a little more sophistication. Multifamily is pretty straightforward. Office is interesting right now. There's say again. I think a warehouse is great. It's just very competitive right now. There's a lot of demand. There's not a lot of inventory. So like I'm sure I talk to people every day who say, oh, I've got a buyer who wants to buy a warehouse, or I've got a client that wants to lease warehouse space. Get in line. Everybody is looking for that right now. There's really not a lot of available inventory in this part of the country. So like, yeah, you could find clients. Are you gonna be able to get a transaction done? I think that's tough. Maybe. You definitely got the buyer tenant side of it is there, for sure.
Another important part too is like when you're making those cold calls, you want to understand what's happening in the market. So Peter Cam had questions like what's going on with retail, what's going on with office, what's going on with multifamily in the area. So you can do all this within CoStar. You click on the markets tab. You had a question about downtown LA. So I put downtown Los Angeles retail. We can see the inventory levels, what's under construction, what's the vacancy rate like, what's market rent per square foot, what's the market sale price per square foot, what's the market cap rate. And you can look at the leasing information, the rent information, new construction, what major sales has happened in the area. So that way, when you make those calls that David was talking about in your prospecting, you can give data and information. So that way those owners want to talk to you because they want to know what's happening with their building. They want to know what's happening around the area of their building. So that would really support the calls.
These reports are also a pretty good thing to take to a listing appointment potentially. A lot of times people are just bringing the comps, to a meeting and like, here's what we think your property's worth. These market and sub-market reports that he's showing right here, this can provide a little more context of how their property fits into like the sort of surrounding area with similar properties. It's about 20 pages long, it's not like this huge thing, to print somebody with. Kind of nice way to differentiate yourself from the next guy though. They're going to meet with like 5 brokers. Everybody just bring the comps. You've got the comps and, oh yeah, here's how your property fits in with the Q4 market summary from 2022, for instance.
Since you got that information based on the category on the market, right?
Yep. So I'll start over again. All you do is just go to CoStar. You go to markets.
And then type in the city or whatever, the area.
Correct. So if you wanted to do like Glendale, you wanted to do the city, you would just put in the city and then it'll be the sub-market for that city.
Gotcha, all right. Makes sense.
And also with those market and sub-market reports, so CoStar has a staff of about 100 economists and market analysts on staff that put those together. They also do quarterly state of the market events, both in person and also over Zoom, where the analysts will give a presentation on like retail in Los Angeles for Q4 2022, and then they take questions from the audience afterwards. A lot of my clients have joined. They just started doing those again since COVID. I had a lot of my clients go to that recent round of them. They were very happy with the information. It was also kind of interesting to see who was attending. Those invitations go out to every CoStar and LoopNet customer. That's basically everybody in the commercial real estate community. It was very interesting to pop open the attendee list on that Zoom call and just kind of see who's there. And then, especially if that's somebody that you're trying to talk to, hey, we were just on that state of the market event together. What'd you think? Very easy conversation starter.
Yeah, so we have like owners, developers, cities. We're on that state of the market call. So if you wanted to network with those people, they'll be on the call too.
Okay. We got a question in the chat.
And I think there's a question in the chat. It says, can you also search residential too? So at the moment, there is no residential in CoStar. However, we bought HomeSnap and homes.com. So hopefully in the future, we will have residential data in CoStar.
So that's like an MLS rival?
So no, this is a Zillow competitor. Now I am very curious about that data integration, how that's gonna, how that's gonna sit with the MLS. That is probably further down the line. Like there's no timeline internally or anything like that.
For sure.
But yeah, I think that's gonna be very interesting.
All right.
All right, thank you. So we went, so I'll go ahead and hit the stop recording and thanks so much for attending. Really appreciate it, everyone.
It's at the top now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.